And I'm going to be very, very frank. And I'm going to attempt to be very, very honest with you and most probably talk to you in a way that very probably most of you have never had anybody to talk to you before. So it's important, first of all, that you listen, that you understand what I'm saying. It's also extremely important that you adults and you ministers, you pastors and wives and other family members that are here, that you not let your mind wander so that you will misquote or misunderstand what I'm going to say. I'm not a young man. I'm not an old man, but I'm not a young one. But I'm old enough now to say things that for years I've wanted to say to young people. I have sat in my office as a counselor for more than 40 years. And I have listened to young people tell me some of the things that they have experienced and have hassled down through the years. I was privileged to be one of the reasons this camp is here is because the Lord sent a revival in Fort Wayne back during what we call the Jesus People days or the hippie days, when there were not hundreds but thousands of young people. At one time we had 16,000 young people, teenagers, on a mailing list. And some of these men that are ministering to you now came out of that sovereign move of God. And the Lord spoke to me in those days, and I made myself available to talk to young people and to listen to them and to always be honest and to tell young people what I knew to be the truth. And so I'm going to share with you out of my heart for the next little while. I appreciate the privilege of addressing you. I want to talk to us tonight about five problems that every young person faces. And there isn't a one of you in this room, not a one, but what to one degree or another you face these problems that I'm going to share with you. I'm going to make them very clear. I'm not going to be preaching at you. I'm going to be sharing with you. I want to talk to you as a father would talk to his children. I'm old enough to be the grandfather of most of you. But here is the first problem that you face as a young person. You face the problem of obedience. Now, let's start off being honest with one another. How many have ever been disobedient? Okay, I'll put my hand up, both of them. You see, every one of us face the problem of being disobedient. How many have ever had the experience of knowing what was expected out of you and knowing what you were told to do and knowing what was required, but there was just something in you that said, I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to do it? Have you ever had that? Okay. So you see, the problem is this problem of obeying. If we could all really not have this problem and all of us obey, we'd save ourselves so much difficulty. But boy, there are just things that come up that something's required of us, and we just say, hey man, that's not for me, bug off. I'm going to do my own thing. Why do we feel that way? Let me explain to us what the Bible says. And I'm not going to read. I'll give you scriptural references and simply quote them. But you write them down so you can read them. The reference I'm about to give to you now is in Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 2. And we learn from this verse and many, many others. You'll find the same problem in Romans chapter 8 and again in Romans chapter 5. But here's the problem. We are all born with a spirit of disobedience. A spirit of disobedience. We do not learn to disobey. Just whatever is natural. If we do what's natural, we're going to disobey. because there is a spirit in all of us. We're born with it. A spirit of disobedience. Have you ever watched a little innocent baby when it got old enough to know what you were saying to it, and you would say something to that child requesting that child, maybe not even old enough to walk? I have a grandson who's just, how old is he? 8 months old? 7, 8 months old? And you put something in his hand, you say, now, Paul Abram, don't you throw that. How many know what he does? And you know what he does after he throws it? Laughs. And you pick it up, hand it back to him, say, don't you throw that. And he'll look at you, great big grin, throw it again. What is that? It's a spirit of disobedience. Now, let me tell you the power of that spirit of disobedience, and let me tell you the beauty of it. That spirit of disobedience runs in contrast to obedience. So we always have to make a choice in everything that confronts us. We're forced to make a choice. So we have a spirit of disobedience, and then we have laid on us certain responsibilities and obligations and responsibilities. And when we face them, we have to decide, am I going to obey what I have been instructed, what I have been told, or am I going to disobey? Now, God permits that in our makeup for this reason. Now, put your thinking hat on, because it'll help you to understand. God permits us to be in a position like that in order, write this in your notes, to exercise your ability to choose. To exercise your ability to choose. So here's what happens in our relationship to God. God knows that we are created and we are made and we possess a spirit of disobedience. Something that says, I don't want to do that, I'm not going to do that. Then God gives us guidelines and regulations and rules and says, now this is what you're to do and this is what you're not to do. That's carried over because that's exactly what our parents tell us to do. They say, this is what I want you to do, and this is what I don't want you to do. And the moment that happens, the moment that there is a demand made upon you, now you're forced to a choice. God says, now I'm going to let you exercise your choice, or what we call free will, or moral agency. So God says, all right, here it is. And then God watches. He not only watches as it relates to the Bible, but God watches what we do as it relates to how we drive. The law says to those of you that can drive, you drive so fast, you stop at the stoplight. Someone says, well, there's nobody going, so I just slow down, throw it up into gear, or if it's not a shift, you just lay her down on the road and spin the wheels, and off you go. Say, well, nobody saw me do that. But you made a choice. Maybe there was nobody around. You made a choice, and the choice was to disobey. Now, what's the significance of that? The significance is this. God made us with either the ability to obey or disobey so He could exercise our ability to choose, because it's the choices that we make that determine what kind of character we've got. Listen to this. Character is the accumulation of choices. Watch this. If I make a bad choice, a bad choice, a bad choice, a bad choice, a good choice, a bad choice, a bad choice, a good choice, what kind of character am I developing? Help me. I'm developing bad character. Bad character. What if I make good choice, good choice, good choice, good choice? Then I make a bad one, but I make good choice, good choice, good choice, good choice. What kind of character am I developing? Good character. Does it make any difference, the choices that you make, when there's nobody around and nobody knows it? Oh boy, does it ever. So every day in your life, when I dismiss here in just a few minutes, every one of you young people are going to be given choices between now and before you go to bed tonight. You will be put in a position where you're going to make choices, either good choices or bad choices. And God is waiting to see what kind of character is that person going to have. Are they going to make a bad choice and just shrug their shoulders and say, well, everybody's doing it? Well, because everybody's doing it doesn't make it right. The answer is, am I obeying or am I disobeying? For instance, the rules are that lights are out at a certain time. And someone says, well, we're going to slip out, have a good time. And maybe you can do that and nobody will ever know it, except a couple of your friends that you can brag about. But you've made a choice to be disobedient. Now, the thing you submit to the most is what you become the slave of. If you continue to make choices of disobedience, you'll become the slave of disobedience. So let me urge you that whatever the rules are, if there's certain rules in the church, I have watched it in our church where we have a sign reserved for staff or reserved for the pastor. I have watched the character of people that'll pull up and say, to hell with that sign. I'll do as I please. And it's a manifestation of the character. We can't be like Christ with a bad character. And you can't have good character if you're making bad choices. Okay? Let me add one other word, and I'm going to get, or one other sentence or two, then I'll move on to the next one. There are no less than 3 great forces that press against us to try to make us disobey. Let me tell you what those 3 forces are. You may want to write them down. The first force that there is to make us disobey is what we call the world system. The world system. The Bible calls it the course of the world. If we follow the world system will never direct us to God. The world system will always direct you away from God. Always. So you've got the world system out here, and there's a lot of pleasure in it. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you young people there's no pleasure in the world. There's a lot of pleasure in the world. But it's for a season. And then it's over. So the world is out here trying to influence us to disobey. Let me tell you something else you've got. You've got a body, this flesh, this thing that you and I live in. And this body, if we do what this body wants to do, this body will make us disobey. And the third force is there are spirit powers. There are spirit forces out here that influence us to try to make us make wrong decisions. I pray tonight that the Spirit of God will so talk to you that you will say, I am going to be obedient. Even if I don't understand what's being required, I am not going to disobey. And when that raises up in you, that's a spirit. When it raises up and says, I'm not going to, that's a spirit. And if we yield to that spirit will lead us away from God. Okay? Here's the second word. And I'm going to move quickly because I can't spend that much time on all of them because I'm going to the most important one. Rebellion. How many have ever, we're being honest tonight, how many have ever felt rebellion? Okay? Do you know what causes rebellion? Restraint does. If there were no restraints on us, we would feel no rebellion. I'm going to try to illustrate this. I want to know how many fellas are here and you weigh 175 pounds or more. How many of you weigh 185 pounds or more? I want all you guys that's under 25, that weigh 185 pounds, come up here and stand with me. Come on, men. Come on, I weigh more than that. Well, that's a lot of lard, isn't it? Okay, let's see how many have I got. You guys all played football, didn't you? Well, wouldn't this be some kind of a football team? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I get 10, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I need 2 more.
Don.
Where's Don? I need 1 more. You're sick. Well, come on up here. You're all right. Okay, here's a big fella right here. Okay, I want you fellas, if you will, I want us to form a square with 3 on each side, right down here in front. Would you? Form a square with 3 on each side. Okay, now make the square just a little bit bigger. Just a little bit bigger. Now, let me make some girl real happy. Boy, I mean to put one girl in the middle of all of this. Okay, you got your hand up. Come on up here. Now, we're going to... What's your name, honey? Chrissy? Chrissy, get right in the middle. Now, I want you to watch because Chrissy's in the middle and there are restraints all around her. And she wants to get free, but when she doesn't want to get free, let's act like she wants to get free. And when she starts out, I want you fellas to keep her from going. Come on, Chris. Right out through there. Try it. Okay, that's enough. Let's give Chris a hand. Thank you, man. Let's give these guys a hand, okay? Let me tell you what I attempted to illustrate. Rebellion is the result of feeling restrained. And if we would have left her here and her attempting to get out of the restraint, she would have become more and more frustrated because she is rebelling against the restraint. Now, put this in your notes in case, so that you will learn. Why does God put us in places where we feel restraint? Why is it that all of a sudden, you as young people find yourself in a place where you feel like you're trapped? And you'll say, man, I'm in a place, I don't like this, I don't like my situation, I don't like it at home, I don't like the way my family treats me, I just don't like this, and I'm very frustrated, and I'm very angry, and I'm going to get out. And the more you try to get out, the more frustrated you are. Why does God permit that to happen to us. Now, you see, he's forced us to a difference between obedience and disobedience so that we can exercise free moral agency, or the ability to choose. And the more you determine and discipline yourself to choose right, the stronger your character becomes. Now, in restraint, when all of a sudden you're put in a situation and you can't get out, there's nothing you can do about it. You're trapped. And you feel like, this isn't fair. I have been pushed into a situation, and if I were to talk to you young people one-on-one and you'd be honest with me, there'd be 75% of you in this room right now that feel like that you're in a situation where you're trapped, and here you are, there's nothing you can do about it, and you don't like it. You don't like the way your dad's treating you. You don't like the way your mother's treating you. You don't like the way it is at school. You don't like the demands that are put on you. You don't like it because you're forced to go to church, and there are just a lot of restraints. Why does God permit that? And if He does, what is He trying to do to us? What is He trying to teach us? Now listen carefully. When we are put in a situation where there is restraint, we are either going to become rebellious in the restraint, or we are going to become submissive in the restraint. And God permits it, trying to teach us to, rather than resist, to submit. Now, young folks, listen to this pastor. Jesus taught us that lesson. Jesus said to His Father, when it came time for Him to go to the cross, He said, Father, is there any way I can get out of this thing? I don't want what's happening. Then He said, nevertheless, Father, I submit to you. Let me tell you girls something. The command of God to you one of these days, if you'll follow the godly pattern, and will become a submissive wife. God will put you into a relationship in the home where the word is submissive. Are you weak because you submit, or are you smart because you submit? You are smart. Now, we got a world telling us, I want to demand my rights and I'm going to get them, whatever I have to do. I'm going to fight. And the more they fight, the more bound they are. Chrissy could have kept right on fighting, and those big guys, 180 pounds, could have kept closing in on her until after a while she couldn't move. They would have restrained her so much that she could have kicked and screamed and could have done everything she wanted to do, and she would have been helpless. And God permits you to be in situations where either you're going to fight it and you're going to get angry and you're going to get so frustrated. You know what a lot of young people are saying now? The answer to all of it is just kill myself, so I'll just commit suicide. Or the answer to all of this is drugs. Or the answer to all of this is to go somewhere where somebody loves me. They don't love me here because they got me restrained. They got me in a situation and I don't like it, and I'm going to rebel. I'll say one more statement about it, and then I'll get off of that word. The Bible says rebellion is as witchcraft. So the moment you begin to rebel against your situation, you are opening the door up for the devil to take total control of your life. Rebellion always leads to destruction. Always leads to destruction. You can't be, and I feel it in my spirit right now that there's some of you young folks that you've got caught up in rebelling against some things that's happening back home, happening in the church, happening where you live, happening in your home, and you came to this camp full of rebellion. And God is saying to you, hey, don't fight it. Commit your way to God. Submit. And you know what God will do? God will deliver you. God will deliver you. And as long as you fight, you're going to get worse and more frustrated and have emotional problems. Most young folks that have emotional problems, they're having it because of rebellion. You quit rebelling and your nerves will slow down and everything will be all right. Okay? Now here's the third word. It's the word anger. Anger. How many of you young folks in the last 30 days have really been angry about something? Mad, upset, just could have bit nails. Do you know why God puts us in situations to test what we're going to do about anger? You know, first of all, you know what causes anger? Let me give you two things many things, but two things in particular that affect you as a young person. The first thing that causes anger is fear. And the second thing that causes anger is frustration. I don't know the answer. I don't know what I can do to change this thing. So I'm mad. Or fear. It's fear because of a relationship that hasn't gone right. A fear that you're not going to be one of the gang. A fear that you're not going to be accepted. A fear that you're going to be the oddball. That you're going to be the strange one. And so you in that fear are driven, and when it doesn't work out, you get angry. Now, God wants us to know, He says that you see, anger is a poison that's released in your system. This is the reason the Bible says don't ever let the sun go down on it. Don't ever let anger stay with you very long. The minute you get angry, that's a signal that either you're frustrated or you're afraid. So don't go to bed with it and don't go to sleep with it. Don't let the sun go down on it. Handle it before. And there are a lot of young people that do things because you're mad. Friend, let me give you an example. One of your parents makes a demand of you and you don't think it's fair. You don't think it's right. So you get angry. You're frustrated. And in your anger, hear me carefully. In your anger, you make a decision in anger. And every decision ever made in anger is a destroying decision. So what is it that's making you angry? What is it in your life that's making that causes you to get so angry? Is it the way your mother treats you? Is it the way your father treats you? Is it the way you're treated at school? Has something unfair happened and you're very angry about it? You see, God permits these things to happen to us, not to destroy us, but to do things for us. Puts us in restraint so that we'll learn how to submit. Let situations come that can make us angry so that we can discipline ourselves to say, I am not going to respond to that person by getting mad. I'm going to skip a word and maybe get to it at the close, but I want to talk to you about the next word. And it's a word that describes a problem that every young person has. There are no exceptions in this room. And that's the problem with sex. Now, if you don't have a sex problem, then you've got a bigger problem than you know about. Every one of you that's in this room have reached the age where your reproductive organs, listen to me, you have all reached the age where your reproductive organs have begun to function. And you know, unless you're sick. Or you were born short of some facilities that God intended you to have. Now, if I put something on the board, can you see it? Okay. How many can see that? How many can't see what I put on the board? Okay, if you can't, you're too old to appreciate what I'm going to say anyway. I have just drawn for you the life experience of girls. If I was drawing a boy, girls, let me tell you how I'd draw him. With but very few rare exceptions, every girl that's in this room, you have a life cycle built into you that's made up of 28-day cycles. Does that come as a surprise to you or something? Okay. Why did God make a young lady, a woman, with a cycle of life? Now listen. Did it because God, when He made man and He made woman, He said, I've made it possible for you to reproduce after your kind. And when I said to you that when you reach the age where you are, and it starts someplace 10, 11, 12, and by the time a girl comes to the place that she moves into this life-producing cycle, serious problems begin to develop. Because not only does the girl move into this life-producing cycle, but with it, every organ that makes it possible, that contributes to the reproductive cycle, every organ in that woman or that girl's body begins to function and to begin to come alive. And with it comes sexual desire. And with it comes areas in the body and on the body that accentuate the sexual desire. And God made that possible. God created that. Now, here's the problem. The sexual desire is there, and it's God ordained. God put it there. Now, let me talk about the significance of this cycle, and I'm going to talk in generalities and yet try to be as candid and as honest as possible. Inside this cycle, the woman in her uterus produces an egg, and that egg stays alive in that girl's body through this cycle unless that egg becomes fertilized. The moment that egg becomes fertilized, that girl is now pregnant. If that egg is not fertilized, in the process of this cycle, the body rejects that egg. And when it does, it cuts off the blood supply that goes to that egg to produce life in it. And that egg is discharged in that girl's body. And that discharge process will run any place from 3 to 6, 7, 8 days. And then she moves into the life cycle again, where now another egg is produced and it keeps moving. And all through the life of a woman, until she reaches the age where she can no longer produce a child, she produces every month the ability to produce a baby. Now, with that, and this is what I want you to get, with that production of the ability to produce life, God has ordained that the body respond in this desire mode so that this desire will be intensified for sexual activity that will cause this egg to be fertilized. I want to say that again. Because if you miss what I'm saying now, you're going to miss the whole purpose for what I've got to say. The moment that a girl comes to the place that she can now move into a life-producing ability. And some girls do this young. Let me put a parenthesis right here. In the Old Testament, the moment that a girl began to menstruate and started the life cycle, that was the signal that the family had to make arrangements for her to get married, so that she did not have to live with a desire that was not fulfilled. They tell us that very probably Mary, the mother of Jesus, wasn't any older than most of you girls in here. Very probably was only 13, 14 years old. So the moment that a female body can produce a life-giving egg, God created so that that body would also have areas that would intensify the desire for sexual activity. Now, the world's got all kinds of words for it. And let me talk down where I want everybody to understand it. They say such things as, I'm turned on, or I'm hot, or a lot of other things, because each generation's got their own words, all saying the same thing, which simply means this. Now, there's my physical makeup is so that I am turned on so that there can be sexual activity, so that in the sexual activity, this egg, before it is rejected from the body, this egg can be fertilized. And that's what your body is saying to the woman when she begins to feel excited about sexual things. And somebody comes along and begins to participate in sexual activity that intensifies the desire. And after a while, the girl loses control. Now, this is a serious thing when we think not of the hundreds or the thousands, but of the millions of girls that are getting pregnant every year. There would be no abortion problem. There would be no abortion problem if there was no sin that produced the unwanted baby in the first place. So the problem is not fighting abortion. If a lot of these folks that are marching on the street and screaming and laying down in front of places and doing all kind of stupid things would start teaching their young people what I'm trying to teach you tonight, we wouldn't have to worry about all this other mess. So what I'm saying to you tonight may make you very self-conscious, but it's not a funny matter, it's a very serious matter, because it's destroying our homes and our nations and our schools and the lives of countless number of people. Let me say something to you girls, and I'm going to come back to it in just a moment. Any boy that uses your body does not love you. Any boy that begins to touch you in the areas that accentuates your desire does not love you. He's playing with you. He doesn't want to marry you. Fact of the matter, when he gets tired of you, he'll cast you off for somebody else. And you're a fool to think that by turning your body over and your desire over to someone that says you're cute and saying sweet things to you and tells you that he loves you, when he doesn't at all, because if he did, he wouldn't be violating you. He would respect you. The fact that he is messing with you means he does not respect you. If he did, he would recognize your body as the temple of God. And you don't love him if you let him do it. You're playing roulette with your body. Now, let me talk a little bit, and I want to put this thing into perspective. I've talked about the woman
Now, the man is so constructed that he penetrates the girl with his sexual organ. And out of his sexual organ comes liquid. One drop of liquid out of a man's sexual organ has enough sperm in it. I'm talking about one drop. Has enough sperm in it to fertilize several dozen eggs, like is in the uterus of a woman. So the moment that a woman or a girl permits a man or a boy to penetrate her, she has now exposed herself to becoming pregnant. And you can use a condom, and you can be on the pill, and I'll deal with that in just a moment. And all you are doing is trespassing against the very means for God to make you happy and fulfilled. You're trespassing into a place that is going to totally destroy you, because as you get older, you're going to realize that you were used and you were abused and you were not loved. There are thousands of women today that are married to men that are convinced that the only reason the man married them is because they felt obligated to them, and today they do not feel loved. Now, listen carefully. The average girl, if a girl is average, when she gets sexual desire, she doesn't want to have sex just to be sexy. She wants that desire satisfied in order to make her feel like she's loved. Because every girl demands that she's loved. So a girl that has any character at all, she gives herself to a man not just because she wants to involve in sex, but because that fella has convinced her that he loves her. And she thinks that when he's doing this to her, that he's loving her. Now listen carefully, girls, and you fellas listen. Sex with a man is not an expression with love. It's not an expression of love. So a man enters in to sexual activity because he has an appetite. It builds up in him and he wants release, not so it'll produce a baby. That's the last thing in the world he wants. What he wants is he wants the sexual activity just to please himself.